Greetings and welcome back to the 2023 starting guide for Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes. We had the first part of the intro. This will be the second part of the intro. We'll get into more detail. If you're a new player, returning player, starting an alt account, I hope you enjoy this content. We're going to talk a lot about how to start an account and explain why we're going to work on ships first, why we're going to focus on getting Zeta materials as soon as we can get them started. We're going to talk about mods, and we're going to talk about guilds. So hopefully this will help understand context for how the starting guides are set up. So let's talk about the importance of fleet. We've said before that there's crystals available here. So at the time of the recording of this holocron, there are crystals for fleet placement. And as you can see, the crystals go up pretty exponentially as you place higher and higher. If you get top 20, you're only getting 100 crystals. If you get top 10, it doubles to 200. If you get number 5, it's 300. And it goes all the way up to 400 crystals if you place first in Fleet Arena. If you go into the store and you buy a pack of crystals for $20, you will get 2,800 crystals. If you place first in Fleet Arena for 7 days in a row at 400 crystals each, you will get 2,800 crystals. Placing first in Fleet gets you $20 worth of crystals per week, $80 per month, something like $900 over the course of a year. So it's really, it's so many crystals. I can't express enough how important it is to get these rewards out of Fleet Arena. So the early game plan for a starting guide really has to address this, and I don't think you need to place first in Fleet every day, but your target really should be to work your way into the top 5. Now that doesn't happen right away. If you're a free-to-play account, you can expect to spend 4 to 5 months in the game before you can reasonably hit top 5. But we'll plan for that. It's in the starting guides. That's why we put it there. Now, there has been some news and some discussion where it's been hinted at that they're going to remove the crystals from the Fleet Arena payouts. So there's reason to expect that'll go away. But if you look at the math, there's actually fleet currency in there as well. So if we go back and look, again, for top 20, you get 1,350 on fleet currency. For top 5, you get 1,500. And I think at number 1, you get 1,800. So every scrap of this shop currency that you can get, it allows you to buy more ships and more Zeta materials. And it's really, even if they took the crystals out of the Fleet Arena placement, it is still worth it to prioritize fleet first to ensure that you're getting a good amount of that shop currency to accelerate your progress in other areas of the game, including currently the only place for free-to-play players to pick up extra Zeta materials. So even if the crystals go away, I still think fleet placement is absolutely the top priority. So fleets help you not only for Fleet Arena, but it's also a big part of Grand Arena, Territory Wars, Territory Battles, and in general gameplay. So fleets are used everywhere. It's not everybody's favorite game mode, but yeah, so the facts are the facts. It may be more fun to build and play certain teams, but fleets are a needed part of the game, and by getting a head start on this stuff, we're going to try to get ahead. So for my starting guides for 2023, I'm going to do 2 different starting journeys, and those starting journeys are going to go into one or the other of the best fleets in the game. We'll have one with the Profundity, we'll have one that uses Executor, and we'll go for the Mega Fleet first. It's that important. So we're going to start out and work on that. So to explain how ships work for new players who may not understand, or even for experienced players, this is not always easy. So the ship actually works, the power of the ship is based on the crew rating times a multiplier times the base stat contribution. So what increases your crew rating? When you look at the pilot of the ship, things that add galactic power to the pilot in general are going to add to the ship. So leveling your character 1 to 85 improves the ship. Taking your stars from 2 up to 7 improves the ship. Every piece of gear that you put on, getting 5 dot mods improves the ship. If you go from 5 dot mods to 6 dot mods, that improves the ship. And the level of the mods. So leveling the mods up to 15. The color of the mod doesn't matter. So if it's a 5 dot gray, blue, gold, that doesn't matter. If it's a 6 dot gray, it does the exact same thing as a 6 dot gold. So within the dot levels, the actual color of the mod doesn't matter. It's just whether it's a 5 dot mod, a 6 dot mod, or whatever. The ability, the skills that you put on the characters, and any zetas, of course, zetas add a big chunk of galactic power to the character, and they also add a big chunk to the multiplier for the ship stat contribution. So on the ship side of things, what increases the ship's base contribution is the level of the ship from 1 to 85 and the stars going from 2 to 7. So what should you work on as a priority? Well, if you have a weak character and you build the ship and you build a really nice ship, because the multiplier on the character side, the crew rating is so low, the way the stats work out, you're multiplying a low number times the base stats and you get a bad ship. So a bad pilot in a big ship is going to be a pretty lame ship, okay? If you build up a really high level character, you relic it, you put 6 dot mods on it, and you put it in a 2-star ship, it's a better result. So a big character in a small ship, in a let's say a weaker ship, does give you a better result. But what we're really looking for is, somewhere in the middle. We're looking for a good character in a good ship. So a Gear 12 character in a 7-star ship that's been built up to level 85 is a pretty strong result, right? So that's what we're looking for. We're looking to build a good pilot, put them in a good ship, work on both sides of it. But just be aware that the character's stat multipliers mean more to the ultimate performance of the ship than the ship's stars itself. Okay. Zeta materials. So zeta materials are skills on some characters that can be game-changing. Darth Vader has Merciless Massacre. The difference between a character that has that zeta and not is just incredible, right? It's a game-changing skill. And for a lot of your teams, the teams are going to be only reach their full effectiveness with sometimes 1 or 2 zetas, but most of the time a full team might need 3, 4, even more zetas to become fully functional and get all their synergy. So these are extremely valuable skill materials. They're in very limited supply. We can't waste them, and we have to get access to them as soon as possible. The first time you can get zeta materials in the game is through the Fleet Material Challenge at Tier 3, which unlocks at level 78. It requires focusing on fleets. From the time that you can work on ships, you need to be working on ships, and we're going to want that. So in the starting guide, when we talk about going from level 1 to level 85, there's going to be a period right at the start where we start building teams. We think about galactic wars. We think about just completing the nodes, the light side nodes, the cantina nodes, mod challenges, and getting 3 stars on those. But as soon as we hit 60 and fleet opens up to us, the strategy is going to change, and we're going to focus on pilots, and we're going to spend all the resources we can on ships and pilots, and we're going to get ready for that Zeta Material Challenge and start getting those Zetas as soon as we can at level 78. All right, let's talk about mods. So mods are the game within the game, and mods are critical. If you put 2 equally matched accounts against each other, in general, the account with better mods has a huge advantage, and they make or break certain teams. The Imperial Troopers are a fantastic team. If they go first, they can just continue to go, kill the entire other team, and the other team never gets a turn. But if your troopers aren't fast enough, they can't do anything, right? The other team goes first, and most likely then you won't win at all. So being able to get the right mods, get the right speed on certain characters, and play the right strategy for certain teams is game changing. So you want good mods. So my suggestion is, watch my mod mastery guide at some point, or other resources, but learn about mods. Figure out what's going on there, and you can't underestimate the value of getting mods every day. So people who, let's say, have a certain amount of crystals, they spend it on characters, they spend it on Cantina maybe, and they skip mods. Skipping mods is like skipping leg day. It just never. It's not good for the synergy of the overall situation, right? So we want to think about mods early in the game. We want to start working on them. We want to start using some of our energy to refresh mods. We're not going to go crazy trying to farm lower mods, 1 dot, 3 dots, 4 dot, whatever. We're really looking to get to 5 dot mods, and then once we can access 5 dot mods, we're going to make sure that we get our fair share of them every day. Okay, if you're struggling with mods, at first, the health mods are the first mods that you can get access to. It's kind of the easiest mod challenge to complete. So you can farm health mods, and then crit chance mods. Later in the game, crit chance mods really aren't that great. There's not so much call for them. But right at the start of the game where you're working on lower level characters, there's some characters that have a bunch of skills and ability that trigger off a critical hit. So we're going to want to farm some crit chance mods up front, get those on some of the right characters so we can get those critical hits and trigger those abilities. And then speed, of course, is the let's say hardest set to farm. That's the furthest to the right. And when you get access to those, you can farm speed mods. So at first, if you're looking at mods and you don't know what to do, don't try to farm every mod type. Don't get offense, potency, defense, everything. Just focus on health, crit chance, and speed at first. Health because they're the easiest to get to. Crit chance because it's critical for some characters. And then speed because you're always going to want to be going faster than the opponent whenever you can for a lot of these teams. There is a mod store. Mods are very expensive, and the statistics on that is pretty mediocre. So I would say early game, even maybe the first year that you're playing, don't buy mods out of the mod shop for credits or fleet building materials. Just leave that alone and try to farm them and work them in the right way. Once you do have the 5 dot challenges, we do have to have some priority on mod refreshes. So if you do Hyperdrive Bundle, what you're going to do, instead of going 1 to 85 and finding the mods and unlocking them and getting some mods developed, you're going to start the game with level 85 characters and no mods at all. So the moment that you start, you really got to dig in there and start building your mod inventory. So it's this strange thing where you're ahead on levels, you're ahead on character gearing, but you'll actually be behind on mods. So you really got to catch up there. It is a critical aspect of the game. Speed is the most important. It's the king of stats. There's a tool called Omega that will evaluate your mod quality in your account. And guess what? It really just looks mostly at the speed stats on your mods. And if you've got a lot of good speed stats, it gives you a good rating. If you don't have good speed stats, it gives you a bad rating. So this is not my opinion. I'm not making this up. The players who've played the game and the people that develop the tools to evaluate your mods are evaluating it based on how much speed you have in your mods. So it's hard to develop a lot of good speed mods, but taking the time to do this and work mods and do it in the right way will put you so far ahead of similar players. Like I said, in PvP situations, you just have such a huge advantage. If you say, okay, fine, well, I'll play the game for 6 months and then I'll get into mods, again, you're just that much further behind. So as soon as you start the game, learn about mods and get ready and treat it like a mini game, right? Like some games you can play a mini game within the game. I think mods need to be treated kind of like a mini game within the game and challenge yourself to keep getting better mods. It's not easy for anyone. There is no luck. Literally, there's no luck in the game. You don't get lucky. It's just statistics. So if you play, certain amount of mods, if you develop 500 mods and you work through them, maybe 50 of them will turn out to be usable and 450 of them get sold. The statistics on the mods are what they are. And only about 9% of them work out in your favor, and you want to keep them and put them on a character. So farm more mods, work on them, and just do it again the next week. All right, guilds. Guilds are very important to the game. There's a lot of different materials and loot that you get that you can only get through guild events. And having a good, strong guild that fits your style is very important. There is an in-game chat, but most guilds also have Discord servers where they coordinate raids, territory battles, and things like that. You'll be put in a starter guild as part of the game. It will give you a guild. Get out of there. Get out of those guilds as soon as you can. Join some kind of beginner guild, and don't be afraid to move on when you're ready. If you follow my starting guides, what's going to happen is you're going to pass up most players that don't have such good advice or aren't, focused in the way that we are. And again, it's not just me saying this. People who followed my beginner's guides in the past have found that experience, that they've passed up all the similar players. And then you got to move on. You got to get out of that guild and be willing to move to a better guild. You can't stay in a starter guild forever. So the importance of guild early game is really important. You want to get into a decent guild, get those raid rewards, get good territory battle rewards, and be part of that community and have fun with it. If you're not familiar with Discord, I really suggest you get familiar with Discord, because SWGOH is a big, these guilds all have their own Discord, and they expect you to be on there and communicate if you're going to be in a guild that's at all even a little bit competitive. Again, raids are launched using tickets. Every player can earn up to 600 tickets a day. Based on the amount of energy and cantina energy that they spend, each energy gets you a ticket. It's easy to get 600 tickets. Regardless of how much damage you do in a raid, you always want to sign up and get into the raid. It's also, you're going to get characters like Han Solo, General Kenobi, and Darth Treya. They only come from these raids, and those are all characters that you're going to want. So get into a guild, get started in these raids. Now here's a true story. So on my Loquitur account, when I started the game free to play, level 1, and when I got into the guild, I almost immediately left. Then I went looking for a new guild. At the time, I had friends, and I probably could have gotten into a good guild or a competitive guild or whatever, but I kind of wanted to do a little experiment instead. So what I did, I went into the tool in the game, and I just kept refreshing it. And what I was looking for was a guild that was over 100 million, that would be able to have access to raids. And a lot of them, when you see them, you have to apply. But that's a selection that guild leaders made when they started their guild, and some guilds don't have a requirement to join. You can just click join and be in the guild. So if you're a new player and you don't really want to go out there and embarrass yourself before you know how to play, and you want to kind of get the feeling for what a guild does and everything else, just go in there, click the button. I spent probably about an hour doing it, and I found 5 different guilds that were over 100 million that didn't have an application requirement. So I picked one of them that was about, I think, 140 million at the time, and I put my character in there. And it was a couple players who were casual. They'd been playing the game for a long time. They had huge accounts, and they didn't want to be competitive. They didn't want to be in PvP. They were collecting their favorite stuff for Star Wars, and they just kind of had this guild, and anybody that joined could get in there, and these guys could do the raids on their own. They didn't need the guild to be good enough to complete the raids. So it was 3 or 4 really good accounts that just carried along anybody that wanted to join. So I joined in there and stayed with them for a couple months, and yeah, it was an interesting experience, and it really easily carried me through leveling up to 85 and then a little bit after. until I got into a position where I felt like I could apply for a better guild. So that's an option, okay? And again, I'll remind you, build one character 7 stars as soon as you can. We're going to target things like 5s or Qui-Gon Jinn, things like that we can buy out of a shop. We'll get them to 7 stars and be able to join those raids. Guilds are good for Geo. The Geonosian characters are good at guild events, and they're not great at raids, but they will help you get into a good guild. The Darkside Geo territory battle is really kind of the early game. Let's say it's hard for it's the hard stuff for the lower tier guilds. I don't know if that makes sense or not, but that's the challenging thing that they're looking to complete. So if you build a full team of Geos, you can get shards for a character called Wat Tambor, which is a key character in the game. So if you're applying for a guild, you've got some work on these Geonosians, and you tell them, I'm going to get 600 tickets every day reliably, promise them that, promise you're building Geos, and you can get into a good early game guild. So if you look in the description of the Holocron down below, I have my own Discord called the Loquitur Holocrons, and within that there's a guild recruitment section. It's just a link to another Discord server. It's not my server, but use the link and go to that recruitment server. It is really a fantastic service, and anybody, any range, any level of the game, any knowledge of the game, you can get in there. Just be honest about who you are. Link to your account, ally code, and you'll get picked up by a guild. You'll find a guild in there for whatever your level of play is. If you're a casual player, don't try to get into a competitive guild, because you'll miss your tickets for a few days and they'll kick you out anyway. So look for a guild that suits you. If you want to be competitive, look for a competitive guild. If you want to be super casual, just be honest about it and look for a casual guild in there. And you'll find players of similar interest, and you can have tons of fun if you're with a community of people that are like you. All right. So within the daily objectives, if you open up the objectives tab, there's daily activities over there all the way to the left. And that's where you complete your daily quests. And I think everybody who plays the game very quickly understands that you want to go in there and complete your daily activities. There's some, journey guide stuff in there, prestige quests, all that stuff. All the way over at the far right, there's guild activities. And if you look, each day there's a different guild activity. And for the one that I've got pulled up here, it says complete PvP attempts. So you can look at your raid ticket count here and make sure that you've gotten your 600 raid tickets. You can look at the daily task for the guild for the day and just try to do what's in the task. So if it says farm dark side, just farm more dark side stuff for the day. If it says light side, farm more light side stuff. If it says spend Cantina energy, try to do your Cantina refreshes on those days. The higher you place, it will give you more guild activity tokens, and that'll help you buy more loot out of the shops. Again, for an early game player, this is not intuitive. The game doesn't really lead you here and show you what's going on. You don't need to place top in your guild, but a lot of people in the guild won't be paying much attention to this anyway. So if it's dark side day and you just farm more dark side stuff, you'll probably place somewhere in the top 10 and get a whole bunch of extra guild event stuff for your store. Okay, now let's talk about energy management, and this is just going to be the basics, right? Light side, dark side energy, fleet, and mod can be refreshed for 3 times a day for 50 crystals, and then it goes up to 100 crystals. Cantina can be refreshed first 3 times for 100 crystals. These are the basic refreshes, and these basic refreshes are the most efficient method for advancing your account. It's buying refreshes will always outperform spending crystals to buy gear or gear packs or whatever else in the game that you can buy with crystals. The very best use of crystals, what will get you ahead in the game, is buying these basic refreshes. Beyond that basic set of refreshes, the cost goes up, the efficiency goes down. You just leave it till tomorrow, and you'll be able to do your basic refreshes again, and don't let the crystals burn a hole in your pocket, so to speak. There's other good ways to spend them in the game, but especially when you're starting out, just think of it this way. And when you're spending crystals, let's say you get 300 for the day, you could do 3 energy refreshes, a couple mod refreshes, a fleet refresh, and build up from there. That's an example. We'll talk a little bit more about that. If you get any kind of GAC placement, a decent fleet arena placement, you can get well over 500 crystals a day. That'll get you all 3 of your basic mod refreshes, energy refreshes, and fleet refreshes. And you'll still have crystals left over to do some cantina refreshes, which is pretty important early in the game. So more about energy. The game gives you free energy 3 times a day. And just to explain how it works so it's not a surprise, it really adds up. Now, there's a reset time that you get to select. You can only change your reset time twice a year. So be smart when you come in here. Don't just click it and then change it and then change it a second time and then you're stuck, right? You want to go in there and really think about what the right time is. Your reset time is the time when the account refreshes and you go back to the basic, like if you did your 3 refreshes the prior day, then after reset, you're back to the basic cost of your refreshes, okay? But the game also gives you free energy. So if you go into settings and you look at your time settings, that's where you can set your reset time. And you can see that mine is set to 6 p.m. 6 p.m. for my time. Once per day, 12 hours from reset, you get the free energy for light and dark energy, cantina energy, and mod energy. So mine is 6 p.m. That means at 6 a.m. in the morning, I get that free energy. It's only available for 2 hours. So if I haven't picked it up by 8 o'clock, it goes away and I miss it. Once per day, 6 hours from reset, you get light and dark and fleet energy, 45 each. Again, mine's at 6 p.m., so that's at noon. Once per day, 3 hours from reset, you get one last 45 of light and dark energy. So for me, that would be at 3 o'clock, and then 3 hours later would be my reset. Each time it comes up, it's only available for 2 hours. So if my reset is at 6 a.m. to 8, noon to 2, and then 3 to 5. And I've got to pick the energy up within those windows. It really adds up to a lot, especially that very first one where you get cantina energy. 45 cantina energy for free is a lot. So depending on when you can pick that energy up, that's when you want to set your reset time. All right. Your squad arena payout is 6 hours from reset, and fleet arena is 5 hours from reset. Again, using my example of 6 p.m., that means that my squad payout is at noon, and my fleet payout is at 1 p.m. Fleet placement is important. So for me, I have a job. I have a normal work that I do every day, but I do have lunch that I can take. So sometime between 12 and 1, I can get in there. I can play a game or two while I eat lunch, and that allows me to compete for my fleet placement on my lunch hour without disturbing my work or upsetting anyone. So if you can't do that until the evening, for example, then maybe you set your reset time as midnight and your fleet payout time at 6 p.m. or 7 p.m. And then your free energy would come in at noon. So you just got to kind of sort that out and figure out what works best for you, your lifestyle, and when you can play. But getting that set up is important. When you first start at level 1, there's going to be this sim mode, and you're not going to have any sim tickets. Don't worry. Once you get fleet, once you hit fleet, it opens up a daily quest where you get a whole bunch of sim tickets. And once you start getting those, sim tickets won't be a problem ever again. Early in the game, we're going to focus on 2 or 3 teams only. If you build every character that the game gives you and you try to level them up and build a lot of galactic power, it actually makes your galactic war harder. So in order to keep your galactic war difficulty down early in the game, Again, we're only going to focus on 2 or 3 teams, and really only focus on those 2 or 3 teams. Don't try to build 6 or 7 teams right away. It's just going to make the game harder for you. And getting that Galactic War completion every day helps a lot. So you do want to pay attention to that. For friend points, in friend points, there's a place in the shops where you can buy stuff for friend points. Don't do it. Use every friend point you have to buy Bronzium packs. And while we're on it, don't ever buy the basic character shard packs. Worst deal in the game. The Chromium packs and the Fleet packs, worst deal in the game. All right. Also, just to say, when you start out, if you're out of credits, don't worry. You're going to be out of credits all the time for a year. You'll be out of things like Mark III holo projectors, Mark IV data pads, Mark III Carbantes, Chirotech pieces. It'll feel like you always need them, but just think of it this way. Once you get them and you advance the character, you need the same kinds of things again. So don't worry that your characters are hung up on these things, because no matter what, no matter how much gear you put on them, they're just going to be hung up on the next thing. So you have to kind of learn that patience of, yeah, it's fine. We'll get it there. We'll work it up. There's no reset of any kind anywhere in the game. A lot of games have this thing where you can get a certain material, you go to your character, you reset your character, it puts it back at level 1, gives you back a refund of all the skill materials and everything else. There's nothing like that in SWGOH. So once you've spent the materials, they are spent, and you can't get them back. And especially for the Omega, Zeta, and Omicron skills, and even early in the game, the Mark III skill materials, be conservative with those. Don't just automatically skill up every character. Skill up only the characters that you're actively working on for teams, and save those materials and be conservative with them, because you can't get them back if you spend them. For example, if you're building Phoenix and you put all the Omega skills on the Phoenix, you've just wasted a whole lot of Omega materials. And you need those Omega materials also when you're doing Zetas. So just, again, be conservative with that stuff at first. Make sure you're putting them in the right places. Critical objectives before 85. If you're free to play and you're going 1 to 85, you've got to get ready for Fleet Arena at level 60. People who do buy the Hyperdrive bundle are going to be way ahead. They're going to join the Fleet Arena day 1 at level 85 with ships that are 5 stars. And you've got to catch up as a free-to-play player. So if you don't do that, you will stay behind in ships forever. You have to accelerate your progress so fast at the beginning that you can pass up these Hyperdrive players. You have to prepare for the Fleet Tier 3 material challenge as soon as it's available at level 78. That means saving up your Galactic War Store currency before 60, and then using that fleet currency once you get fleet unlocked for very specific ships, and building a fleet to take on these Hyperdrive bundle players. If you are a Hyperdrive bundle player, once you get in the game, if you let off the gas and you don't continue to purchase and work on things that are focused on pilots and fleet, everybody's going to pass you up. So even if you're a Hyperdrive player, you still gotta stay fighting for it. All right. So what's next? We've hit on it right here, a little bit about spending, a little bit about Hyperdrive. We're going to talk about real advice for spending crystals, advice for spending real money in the game, on how to accelerate the account. And we're also going to talk a little bit about how not to spend money, because you can spend money in a way that's very wasteful and inefficient. And what happens then is people start to realize that they've wasted a bunch of money, and that doesn't make for you to want to continue the game. So I've seen that too often, where people come in, they spend money badly, and then they regret it and they quit. So try to avoid doing that. And I don't judge if people want to spend. There's nothing great about being free to play. There's nothing great about being a spender. Anybody who wants to play the game can play the game in their way, and I'm here to give advice on how to make the most effective use of those resources. So that's what we will do in the next Holocron. So thank you all for watching. That concludes part 2. I hope to see you back in part 3, and we'll talk some more about how to get this game started up. Thank you all for watching. Hit that like button on the way out. If you didn't hit it on the way in, I sure would appreciate it. See you in the next Holocron.